Hey, hey, hey! Welcome back, everybody. It's a new year and a new show. We've been busy retooling around here, and I hope you like what we've done with the place. And tonight we're going to be having a great old time with a fresh new creator who's really making a name for himself, and we're really excited to have him here, Skydiver Tanner. How are you, Tanner?
Good. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. First show of the year. Couldn't be more happy. So how have you been?
Doing well. Freezing though. It's a high of like -6 degrees Fahrenheit today, which I think is like -24 or 25 degrees Celsius. So staying inside and staying bundled up this weekend.
No way, man. It's too hot here for that. And if anybody out there is wondering what you're seeing behind us, that is the my hometown where I live now, Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam. And yeah, that's our new look for this year. So let's welcome our good old crew back again for some more fun. And we'll start with everyone's favorite chat moderator, Aimee. How are you, dear?
I am doing great, thank you. A lot's been happening since we last were on Mega Mirror Live. So this is awesome. We've got some great shows coming up. I'm really excited about this year. I'm excited about all the guests we have going on. And I just want to let everyone know, if you have any questions for Skydiver Tanner or for anybody else, please feel free to tag EiE Network in the chat.
Awesome. And let's move over to the man who pushes the buttons and spins the dials and keeps everything moving along. Colon, how are you, sir?
Well, I'm hoping that everything's moving along sweet and smart. So yeah, it's nice to have this fresh look, get things set up on it. So good job, Jeff. Good job. I'm loving it.
Thank you. Well, you guys helped a lot too, and I'm really, really looking forward to this year. I think it's going to be a great season. So, well, why don't we just start and have a little chit chat with our guest? So, Tanner, are you working as an instructor or something, or what do you do for a living?
Yeah, so I currently am a iFly wind tunnel instructor, where anyone who wants to maybe experience skydiving but doesn't want to actually do the jumping out of the airplane, you can come in and we call it indoor skydiving, but really it's just body flight. Because you're not jumping anywhere, you're not free falling at any point. And basically what it is you come in, we gear you up, we take you through a short class to teach you kind of basic like hand signals and what to do as far as holding your body position and stuff like that. Because obviously it's loud in there, we can't talk to you, so we got to do a little teaching beforehand. And then basically when we're ready to go, everyone lines up inside a little chamber section. And when it's your turn, you just walk up to the door and belly flop on in, and we start teaching you how to do regular old body flight in the stable body position. It's easier than people think it is, but it's also harder than people think it is. You've got to stay relaxed while also holding a position and trying to make sure that you're symmetrical and small little movements. And then I also have my coach instructor rating in skydiving. So once you pass a certain level, when you're trying to get your license, you would graduate on to someone like me, where I start teaching you how to exit the airplane in different ways and how to start flying when you are licensed to be with other people. So that's what I do in skydiving as well.
Awesome. So how long have you been jumping?
I started, it would be in 2016 for my 36th birthday. So it'd be about 4.5 years ago.
Cool.
I'm definitely afraid of heights. I don't like being up on edges. I don't like being on high balconies or anything. And I decided, as a point in my life where I want to face one of my fears. And I left the airplane door and got down on the ground, and I said, never again. And
that's awesome. That's really great. You wrestled your fear to the ground. That's awesome. Really cool. So, well, let's get to some of the questions that I wanted to ask you. First of all, what's your channel all about? Like, how did you get started on YouTube?
So I've had a YouTube since like 2008, I think it was, and I just posted random stuff on there. But when the pandemic hit, I got into drone flying, and so I started to learn how to produce videos off of my drone flying. And so that's what my channel kind of initially was going to be, was just types of different drone videos. But when the winter hit and it gets harder to fly and your hands freeze up doing the controls, I wanted to just do something different. And a lot of people were asking me, about skydiving and about body flight and about different things that I've done. So I was just like, why not just talk about some of those things and teach people about it so they understand the safety behind it, but also to just talk about anything. There's a lot of subjects out there that I think don't get touched sometimes. And so I came up with the series Up in the Air, where I tell people quite literally the topic is up in the air on what it might be. So one week it could be about, like how a parachute deploys, and the next week it could be about, body image issues. And I just kind of want to be a place for everyone to kind of come and discuss and have open conversation and have fun. And then, I get ideas from different people. And so that's kind of where I've been going with it, just taking in ideas from everyone else on what they'd like to hear. Cool.
That's cool. Well, I've been to your channel. I found quite a bit of that stuff quite interesting, because skydiving is something I've always wanted to try, but I'm getting to the age now where I'm afraid I'm going to break something.
We've had people come in for their 90th birthday and skydiving. It's awesome.
Yeah. Well, I might just have to come and see you next time I'm stateside and maybe do a tandem or something, because I would like to try it one time for sure. Absolutely. Yeah. So being a new YouTuber, how long have you been on YouTube now?
Doing created content where I'm in front of the camera. I probably only started in late November, beginning of December of 2020. So only a couple months here.
So you're still kind of new at it.
Yeah, the videos I had posted before were basically just raw footage of skydives. I didn't really get into the whole editing thing. I didn't understand it. I'm not a software person. I'm more of a hardware person. And so this has been kind of a new little venture, trying to get music to the beat and all that. And
Awesome. Well, you're doing a pretty good job so far. I'll say that.
Well, thank you.
So kudos to you for that. But I know what it's like starting a channel and getting it going. I'm still struggling with mine as well. But what's been the biggest challenge for you so far?
Kind of myself. I'm kind of a perfectionist when it comes to things, and I want it to look as good as possible. But at the same time, I try to remind myself, one, we're all human and we all have those mistakes, right? And going around to certain channels and certain content creators, I've noticed that the ones I tend to lean more towards are the ones who are more themselves and willing to show the mistakes, right? And so I didn't focus on trying to be so perfect with it all the time, and I decided to just be me. And at the end of all my videos, I usually put like some sort of bloopers that happened during it. So that was the first part, and the next part is like ideas of what to come up with. I don't want to be strictly a channel that talks about skydiving and the safety, or body flight and the safety. That's it's stuff I like to talk about. So it's the ideas of what things to come up with next, because it seems like some of my videos have been more on the teaching level, and I would like to kind of stray away from that and maybe talk about everyday challenges that maybe people go through, while also still teaching people about other different topics.
Cool. Well, I'm looking forward to what you come up with in future videos, because I like what I've seen so far.
Cool.
Now, before we actually move on to your first video, I thought maybe we would check in with Aimee and see if there's anything from the side chat that we need to kind of take care of. Aimee?
Oh, absolutely. We've got we've got a question and we've got a comment. We've got Matt Force says, does Skydiver Tanner enjoy watching those skydiving sims, those wind chambers? And then Microraptor has a comment that says, wrestle this fear to the ground by falling very quickly towards the ground. So there we go.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
You know, there are videos out there of people. I would highly suggest people look up Sydney Kennett. I believe that's her last name. Now, she is a wind tunnel flyer. She's about 15 years old. She might be 16 now. And she does a lot of freestyle body flight inside the wind tunnel. And she'll usually choreograph something to music where she'll be wearing a Bluetooth headset underneath her helmet. And then she also has it set up so it can play on the speakers outside of the wind tunnel. And she will do a flight kind of like figure skating, right? Where they do it to the music, and she'll go inside the wind tunnel and fly around. And what she can do inside that wind tunnel is insane. She does styles of body flight that people would look at and they would understand that it's hard. They just see her flying and like, oh, that's cool. But the style of flying that she would be doing can take years to figure out and to perfect. And it's really beautiful. It's like a dance sometimes. Even the competitions in there is like a dance. So.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay, well, let's move on to the first video I chose. Before we do that, by the way, everyone in the side chat, just like last year, videos that we show are usually edited down to about 6 or 7 minutes in the interest of saving time. I highly encourage you to go to Skydiver channel or Skydiver Tanner's channel and check out the full-length videos. They are worth the watch. So the first video I chose, Tanner, was one that struck me because it's the first thing that comes to my mind when I think about skydiving, and that is the safety of the sport. Yes. So I'd like to just give people a look at part of Up in the Air with Skydiver Tanner, episode 2, the skydiving rig safety. So I thought that might be interesting for the folks to watch. Yeah, so, Colin, whenever you're ready, you can go ahead and run that. Well, got it a little bit backwards.
Hello everyone, and welcome to Up in the Air with me, Skydiver Tanner. This is episode 2. Today we are going to be discussing basically like the safety features of skydiving with the skydiving rig. Now I know a couple of you have asked questions and said it would be kind of cool to see what types of things go into the safety of skydiving. Now it's a really huge topic to get into as far as what safety stuff we do and how we try to maintain it while skydiving. But I figured I'd kind of go over mostly like the skydiving rig and the safety features built into that. But first, I'll say there's a Skydiver's Information Manual. The USPA, United States Parachutists Association, is one of the governing bodies in the U.S. The next obviously being the FAA. The FAA is the ultimate governing body when it comes to anything inside the air, when it comes to the United States. The USPA is not required at all drop zones, but the majority of them do go off the USPA guidelines. And so if you do plan on skydiving, I'd highly recommend finding out a USPA drop zone. It's not too hard to find. Like I said, the majority of them are USPA. So that's kind of the one thing, is they kind of govern everything as far as skydiving goes, and you do get a license, you know, so if you want to be your own licensed skydiver, you do have to do tests and go through certain things. But the biggest part is to go over the skydiving rig. So here I have my own system. Purchased this one used for about $3,500. They're obviously not very cheap, and these are built to fit you specifically. Now, like I said, I got mine used, and I did happen to buy it from someone who is around the same build as me. But when you get a rig obviously one of the safety things is you want it to fit snug on you. You don't want it to be super, super loose, and you don't want it to be really small either. So when you get one of these, if you were to buy it brand new, you're going to have someone measure you, who's going to make sure your torso length, basically your hip wise, your legs are all going to be measured so that this can fit nice and snug on you while you're flying. So that's kind of like one of the first things, is making sure that you have a rig that fits you while you're up in the air. Now we're going to kind of go over the actual physical features on the skydiving rig that are built-in safety features for when you are doing a skydive. The first one right here is really important to a lot of skydivers. If you are going to do a tandem skydive and you don't plan on getting your license, this is required on all tandem skydiving rigs. What this does is it's an automatic activation device, or an AAD, and will automatically deploy your reserve parachute if you are blacked out, knocked out, having some sort of medical condition during free fall. So once I reach a certain altitude, if I am blacked out or unconscious, this is going to automatically deploy my reserve parachute for me, and I won't ever have to worry about fabric not being over my head. These do get inspected. Different companies have different standards. Some of them might be every 3 years. Most of them will expire after 16 years. You do want to get it sent in, have the battery changed, have it inspected. When you go to get a reserve repack, which you have to have your reserve inspected every 6 months by a certified FAA rigger, has to be inspected and repacked. They usually check this out and make sure everything's proper and running well, as well as send it in for you if it does need a system check. So that's the first and foremost thing that's really important on these rigs. The next, as we start to move down, you got this 3-ring system here. Now I'm going to kind of play a little video up in the corner here so you can see how the 3-ring system works. Someone invented this, I can't remember how long ago, but basically you have to have the middle ring through this big ring, the little ring through the middle ring, and then it goes through to back to your cutaway line. So if I'm in free fall, or if I'm even under canopy and I have some sort of malfunction, I have this reserve handle right here. What I do is I basically pull it really fast. It pulls on these little yellow lines that you can see right here. The little line then releases this cord through the small ring. The small ring goes through the medium ring goes through the big ring, which, like I said, you could see in the animation going on right here. And that's what's going to release your main canopy from your rig. Now, on some of these rigs, what's kind of cool, like for mine, is I have something called a skyhook and an RSL, reserve static line, right here. So when I go to pull my cutaway and my main is starting to fly away, my main is going to help pull my reserve canopy out for me. So if I'm in a panic and I pull my reserve or my cutaway handle, it's going to start pulling everything out for me. Should those fail, or should I not have that system on here, I got that reserve handle. So you pull your cutaway and then you pull your reserve handle. Your reserve handle then releases a pin that allows the spring-loaded pilot chute on your reserve to shoot above your head. Now the pilot chute basically is just kind of like a small parachute, helps catch air in your free fall, which then helps pull the reserve parachute out. I am going to go over in the future how the whole system works as far as, the release of the parachute and all that stuff. I'll pull it all out for you. You guys can see all the lines and maybe even do a time-lapse pack job for you guys. That way you can kind of see how it works. So yeah, right there you got the AAD, automatically deploys your parachute, your reserve parachute if you're blacked out. You got your cutaway handle that I pull in case there's some sort of malfunction while I'm in free fall or under my main canopy. Releases everything. The RSL, the skyhook help pull out the reserve. If I don't have those, I got the reserve handle right here. Pull that, releases the pin. That's my reserve come out. So that's kind of like a big thing going on right here alone. If I happen to land on a roof, or if I land on the ground and it's a really strong windy day and my main parachute's pulling me backward, I can pull this little tab right here it releases that reserve static line from my main, and I can even cut away my main. That way my main flies away instead of pulling me off a roof or blowing me back on the ground, and my reserve won't release then once that main gets blown back. So that's kind of another little cool feature about this. On these rigs, everything really, really strong webbing. All D handles, so when you go to put everything through, you want to make sure you loop it through the D handle. I will put this on so you guys can see what it looks like as I'm putting it on.
Awesome.
Very cool.
Oh, that was a really interesting video. There's so much more involved to a parachute rig than just a piece of cloth with a bunch of strings.
Exactly. And that's exactly why I wanted to do that, is to show everyone, exactly all the things that go into it, because a lot of people think either you have just one parachute or that there aren't backups to backups, So.
Yeah. What I found really interesting about that video is you mentioned that you actually have to be a licensed packer to pack a chute. How long does it take to pack a chute?
So when you go to get your license, you learn how to pack, because obviously if you want to be a skydiver, you should know how to pack first and foremost, especially if you buy your own rig. Now you can hire packers to do it for you. Usually they're a bit quicker, but you have to know how to pack your own. When I was 2 years into the sport, I spent a summer as a packer at our local drop zone. So I was packing the tandem rigs, the sport rigs, the student rigs, and the requirements are that you have to be under the supervision of a certified FAA rigger. And so usually there's one on site, just in case something were to go wrong or whatnot, then there's accountability. For the people who get their certification, I'm not exactly familiar with all the steps that they have to go through, but I do know that it's through the FAA, and they have to take certain tests. They have to show knowledge, skills, because it's not just packing a parachute. It's, fixing it, like patching up a hole if there's a hole in one of them. It's replacing the lines on there if someone needs the lines replacing. It's stitching on some of the webbing, like if my chest strap was showing signs of wear, they got to be able to know what type of material it's made out of, what's the tensile strength of the actual stitching, and what style of stitching that they need to use. You can't just throw it under any old sewing machine and have at it. You gotta have a specific style of stitch and a specific style of threading. There's a lot that goes into it, and then there's also different levels that they have to go through as well. I don't know the names of those levels or anything like that, but it's, let's say A, B, C. So A would be kind of like your initial rigging certification, and then B would maybe be like something a little bit more complex, and then your C would be where you can actually pretty much do everything on the rig, plus teach people then how to become certified in doing that type of stuff.
Awesome. So it takes a while. You got to really know your stuff, eh?
Exactly.
Cool. Well, let's see if the chat has any questions about parachute safety. Aimee?
Yeah, we actually do have quite a bit of comments and questions here. This is good. We have Carl Edwards says, please ask Tanner if he has ever had butterflies before a jump. And Stephen Paul says, should something go wrong with the main chute, how long do you have in time to deal with it before it's too late? And Carl Edwards says he knows he would pull the wrong pin. And then it's a me, yeah. And it's a me. Mario says, how expensive is the word first in skydiving?
Well, oh god, okay. So the first one, butterflies. The way we've always put it, if you don't get nervous or have some sort of butterflies when you're in skydiving, whether you have one jump or whether you have 10,000 jumps, nerves is always a good thing to have. If you don't have a little bit of nerves, or if you aren't maybe kind of thinking about things, that's where we tell people, like, you should probably get out of it, because that's where you start to become complicit, and that's where things can happen. Usually the first few jumps of the season, when the season starts back up, the butterflies will kick in because, it's been a while and it's new and exciting again. And do you remember everything? It subsides as the season goes along, where it doesn't completely go away, at least not for me. There's always that little bit of there, because you're not meant to jump out of an airplane 13,000 feet above the ground. It's not human nature to do that. So that would be like the first thing. The butterflies pretty much are always there. The intensity of them can change. If I'm trying a new thing on a jump, whether it be a different style or whether it be a different type of formation flying that I haven't done before, I'll get the nervousness of you just hope you do well. And so that's always there. The question about, what do we do as far as how much time do we have for the reserve should there be a malfunction? We all have something that there's two types of things that we go off of. We have a decision altitude, and then we have something called a hard deck. The decision altitude usually is exactly what it sounds like. If you are under canopy or if something is going on, by what altitude do you want to have a decision to deploy your reserve? Cut away your main and deploy your reserve. Now, the USPA, which I was talking about in the beginning, they recommend that you have your parachute deployment before, depending on your license rating, before 3,000 feet, you should be deploying your parachute. So most people's decision altitude is 2,000 feet above the ground, because once you deploy, usually if you are at terminal velocity, it takes about 500 feet to 1,000 feet before you got a fully inflated canopy. And so once it's open, you look up, you check everything, you make sure you don't have any broken lines, you make sure you don't have any holes in your canopy, all sorts of different things. And if there's a malfunction that would cause you to not fly down safely on your main parachute, or that you can't fix by that 2,000 foot mark, then you cut away your main and you deploy your reserve. The hard deck would be, should you get below your decision altitude and you can't fix it, or you're trying to fix it, but by 1,000 feet, that would be my hard deck. By 1,000 feet, at that point, I would no longer cut away my main. I would deploy my reserve as well. Because the point is, you want to have as much fabric overhead as possible. And if you were to cut away by 1,000 feet, it might take 500 feet before your reserve is fully open, and that only leaves you 500 feet to fly the rest of the way down, or it could take a little bit longer. So the more altitude, the better. So the decision altitude for me would be about 2,000 feet. Does everything look okay on my system? If not, if I can't work out the malfunction, cut away my main, deploy my reserve. If stuff happens below 2,000 feet and I can't work it out by 1,000 feet, I just deploy my reserve and have both my main and my reserve over my head to try to save me as much as possible. And then the last one, I already forgot what the last one was.
What was the last one, Aimee?
Yeah, sure. Sorry, I had to get to that mute button. I'm just scrolling here. Sorry about that. That last one was how expensive is the word first in skydiving?
Oh, that's right. So once you're licensed, you don't say the F word. You never say the F word. If you do, you owe a case of beer. So you usually say initial, like my initial 4-way group jump, my initial head down jump, my initial wingsuit jump, whatever it might be. You use the initial word instead of the F word. If you use the F word, you owe a case of beer. And typically, anyways, even if it is your initial time doing something, you owe a case of beer. So if it's your initial time doing a crew jump, you owe a case of beer. If it's your initial time jumping with a GoPro on your helmet, you owe a case of beer. So it gets spendy as far as how that goes. And it's just kind of like, it's people will hold you accountable, because skydivers at the end of the day, they like their beer.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Well, that's a good thing, I guess, eh?
Yeah.
What's that?
You're not drinking it on the way down.
No. um, but it's pretty common at the end of the day, the very last jump, the sunset jump. Usually when you're coming in for a landing, you'll have someone out there holding a can of beer for you to, try to land next to, grab that can of beer to start drinking right away. Especially if it was a busy day of jumping and it's time to relax and sit by the fire.
Yeah, awesome. Well, let's get the crew in on this. Colin, do you have anything you want to ask Tanner?
Oh, I'm just remarking on the fact that you jumped out of a perfectly working aircraft, totally serviced by a licensed engineer who made sure that it got up in the air and managed to will come down fairly safely. All landings are crashes. And you jumped out onto a piece of fabric.
Right.
Yeah.
I usually tell people, and it's kind of funny, if you go to do a tandem, they even tell you, like, they have you watch a little safety video and they tell you in that no airplane is perfectly good and no pilot is perfecally good. So it's like, oh, thanks. So I always argue the fact
that the last landing.
Yeah. I always argue there's no airplane that's perfectly good nor pilot. And I also then will show a lot of times like the video and I'm like, you see that big hole on the back end of the airplane? That's not supposed to be there. So we jump out of it.
Save yourself now.
Right.
How about you, Aimee? Do you have any questions?
Nothing so far. Just that I think that's awesome. I think it's very brave of you to be able to do that. And
Cool.
the videos that you have are awesome. I do actually have two more from the chat that are actually really good questions too.
Okay.
Microraptor says, does Chase skydive, and does skydiving giving any experience that could be used in arguments against flat earthers? And then
Gravity.
yeah, exactly. And then Facty asks if he's thinking about base jumping or have you done it already?
All right, so Chase has done one skydive. Initially, he didn't show much of an interest in skydiving until he came out to the drop zone with me, and I told him, I said, if you keep coming to the drop zone with me and you keep watching these people do this stuff, eventually you're going to want to do it, because you see people landing time after time and time again, and you see all the safety that goes into it, and so the more you're out there, the more you start to feel comfortable with it. And when it became my birthday 2 years ago, he decided he wanted to do a jump for my birthday and, be like, yeah, that'll be my birthday gift type thing. And I kind of, once he said he was willing to jump, I set it up. Some people know, some people don't. I set it up where I was going to propose to him that day because I thought, well, how cool would that be? He jumps out of an airplane, gets down on the ground, his heart's racing, and then I go up and, freak him out even more by proposing to him. So Chase has done one jump. He said he would do it again, but he's done a lot of wind tunnel flying with me. I've taken him in there and I've trained him on most of the belly skills. So once everything opens back up, I'll get him back in the air inside the wind tunnel and start teaching him different forms of flying. Now I forgot some of the other ones you already asked.
Base jumping.
Oh, base jumping. That's where the fear of heights comes in. Being up at the edge of the base would scare me a little bit too much. When you're in an airplane and you get up so high, it all starts to look the same. And so you don't really kind of notice it. And it is recommended. You don't have to. Unfortunately, you don't have to. But typically they say you have to have a minimum of 200 jumps before you should start base jumping. Jumping off bridges or mountainsides and stuff like that. And that's because they want you to be proficient with your canopy and they want you to understand malfunctions and not basically freak out over stuff. And so they recommend that you have at least 200 jumps in a Class C license before you start base jumping. So it's not really the thing I'd want to get into, because to me, altitude is my friend. The more altitude I have, if there were to be something wrong, I know that I can try to either fix it or I can use my reserve canopy. Base jumping, it's kind of like your main canopy, and that's about it, because you're not going to have enough time to deploy your reserve. So I haven't been too into that. Would I ever change my mind in the future? Possibly. it depends. Jumping from a helicopter or a hot air balloon would be kind of cool. They're higher than most bridges and cliffs, but low enough where you can still have fun with it. And
Cool.
then the last one again, you'll have to repeat.
I missed it myself.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, I think that was it. And then Kevin Paul came back with another, actually a follow-up. Yes, what's the rough timeline in minutes and seconds from first pull of main chute to the recoveries, should they be needed, not height time?
Right. Okay. I guess it depends. If you're still at a terminal velocity rate, your reserve would probably still open fairly quickly. I'd say within like 2 to 3 seconds. Just because, if you're in free fall speed, it's pulling everything out that much quicker. If you are under your main canopy and you have to cut that away and then deploy your reserve, you're at a much slower speed still. So it probably would take a few more seconds, not like a lot of seconds, but a little bit more time, just because you don't have that velocity to inflate everything really fast. There's something we call a hop and pop, where you have to learn it when you're doing your training, and we do it for other things. And hop and pops are just fun. And it's basically where you go to about 5,000 feet, you jump out of the airplane, and you deploy your parachute right away. And usually those are the softest openings because you're not at terminal velocity yet. You throw out your pilot chute and things slowly inflate. And so the first time you do it, you're like, oh my goodness, is my canopy inflating? Because it does take so much longer, and it's so smooth and soft. So it's a few seconds difference between the terminal velocity of deploying your reserve and probably being under your main canopy and then deploying. Luckily, I've never had to use my reserve, so I don't know personally, but watching videos and seeing other people talk about it, that's kind of my estimate.
Cool. That's really interesting. I find this all so fascinating. Skydiving is one of those sports that I've always wanted to try, but never managed to actually do it.
I got one more little question to throw in. Have you ever seen the video by the Stupid Cruise? I think there was one guy who did skydive without a parachute, and he had to link up with a guy with a tandem to land. It was totally illegal. I know this. It's totally illegal.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I haven't. There's some things I've watched, and that stuff is. I don't get why people would want to do that. Like the guy who jumped, I think it was like Stride Gum. He jumped out at who sponsored it, and jumped out at like 30,000 feet without a parachute and just free falled the whole way, and then landed in a net. And even he said he kind of butt puckered the last little bit because he realized he was kind of a little offset and a little bit too early of the big net that he was landing in. And you watch it, and he lands more close to the edge than he does toward the center. And I know it's just a big no for me. Yeah,
that's weird, because I would expect somebody like that to be actually using a wingsuit, so something to get more slow down from by expanding out. But this guy jumped out with just a pair of shorts on, and it scared the shit out of me, thinking, no, don't do that. No, just don't.
Mm-hmm.
That to me comes across as like stupid with a capital crazy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
All
it's
right.
Like the people who walk on the very edge of the buildings, without anything on, and they're, oh no.
Yeah, all you need is a good bus, and you're done for. Exactly. All right, so let's kind of move along here, and I got a couple more questions, and then we'll take a look at your second video. Cool. First one, what's been the biggest impact during the current pandemic that you've had to deal with?
Well, furlough. I've been on furlough for 11 months now, so not working has taken its toll. However, it's gotten me back into hobbies and doing things that I really enjoy. I used to build rockets when I was in middle school, early high school, model rockets. And so when the pandemic hit, it got me back into that. Something that I forgot how much I actually enjoyed it and crafting everything. Same with the drone flying and learning how to create videos. So it's kind of helped pull out a little bit more of the artistic side in me that I forgot I had sometimes. And so doing that has impacted me and kind of brought about a little bit of a happiness. And then as far as, you know, something maybe negative aside from being on furlough was we were right on the verge of purchasing a home. We had gotten pre-approved for everything. We got pre-approved for like a down payment assistance because it was going to be our first home. And the very next day after we got approved for the down payment assistance, they paused all the programs because they didn't know how it was going to go. And so we had to stop looking for a home. And then once they reopened the programs, then at that point, you know, I was on unemployment for a while, and you can't use that for pre-approval of a home. And so that was probably the biggest impact, was not being in the house and being stuck in our apartment for another year. And it'll probably extend a little bit longer yet, because once I get back to work, I'll have to make sure to have those pay stubs ready to go.
So do you think we'll return to normalcy this year, or you think we're going to get just more of the same?
I sure hope so. You know, there's so many new mutations of it out there, but I believe people have been saying that the vaccination, you know, is going to help even with the mutations and stuff like that. I think it'll take some people a while to trust that we're back to normal. You know, and so there could be that apprehension, because now it's become a habit of being at home or doing a lot of things. The one thing I would like to see is people keep using masks, you know, maybe not 100% of the time, but if you feel that you're starting to get a cold or a flu or feeling a little bit sick, I would hope people just start wearing their mask, you know, kind of like you see over in the Asian countries. I don't get the whole, you know, being so against it. I don't like wearing a mask, but I'll wear it, no problem. You know, I would like to protect other people. And if I have a cold, why wouldn't I want to put a mask on? Why would I want to try to get other people sick? And so I would hope that we can kind of come to a normalcy while also continuing this route of being a little bit safe and helping each other out.
Yeah, I agree. So a question I wanted to ask you earlier, what does Chase do? Does he work as well, or?
Yeah, so he works at a coffee shop close by here, barista by the daytime, and so he was impacted a little bit as far as his hours go, because when they first shut down, you know, it was like, well, only limited things, so they kind of kept their hours shorter. They still had people coming through the drive-through, and they could do it that way, but there was no in seating, no nothing like that. And then about 2-3 months after our initial shutdown, they started to open up more. So he's been lucky. He's been able to continue on there, and been able to get some pay increases and a little bit of a better position. So it's actually benefited him. And then most people know already by, you know, usually at nights or weekends or whenever, he also performs drag. And that obviously has been impacted a lot, because you can't go out to the bars. You can't, you know, go to any of these shows and stuff like that. So they've been doing everything virtually online, and, you know, doing it on YouTube and Facebook Live and all that. And then what they do is they'll have like a Venmo or a PayPal or a Cash App or something. So they can still get tipped by doing an online performance, because some of the drag queens out there, that's all they do. That is their full-time job. So they've been impacted a lot. Luckily, it's not a full-time job for him yet. He would like to get there by doing it. So if anyone is into drag out there or any sort of performing arts, if there is an online virtual show, definitely support those people, help them out, because some of them, that is their only job and not making anything right now. And so even if it's people who are playing music that used to do it for cash, and now they're doing like an online virtual show for you, if you can find a way to tip them, I'd highly suggest that you do that, because they're hurting just as much as everyone else.
Well, if you pass us the link for Chase's site, then we'll make sure we get that in the chat.
Cool.
That'd be awesome. That'd be
Yeah.
awesome. All right. So at this point, I'd like to kind of move on to the second video I chose. And this one, wow, what a story. You were hit by lightning.
I sure was.
Oh, man. Well, I took about a 6 or 7 minute bit from the beginning of that. And I thought it'd be fun for the people to see, to actually speak to someone who was struck by lightning and is here to talk about it. Isn't that something? So why don't we do that, and then we'll come back and we'll let you expand on it a little bit. So,
Sounds
Colin, let's load that up.
Okay, so the past 2 weeks or so, I've been getting some messages from friends who I haven't talked to in a long time, and even a coworker recently called me up just to verify the story, even though I thought I explained it before. But this video, going away from my drone videos and away from skydiving or tunnel flight, I wanted to get into my experience with being struck by lightning. Now, I haven't seen a lot of videos out there of people's personal experiences, aside from being interviewed on the news or something like that. But I kind of wanted to discuss what I feel is my long-term effects or immediate effects of when I was struck by lightning. I'll tell the story of what all happened. I'll lead up to it, but I kind of mostly want to make this about how I feel things have been going over the past 18 years since my lightning strike. So getting into the story, it was August 15th, 2002. Obviously a day I will never forget. And I used to work out at the international airport out here as an airline refueler. And anytime a storm would come in, if lightning was within 10 miles of the airport, they shut the airport down for 15 minutes. If you were at 14 minutes, 59 seconds, and lightning struck again, another 15 minutes gets added back onto the clock. Our fuel system was all piped underground, pressurized piping system, so when we fuel an airplane, we'd hook our truck up to the hydrant pit, and the fuel would get filtered through the truck and then go into the airplane. And so it was really important that we shut the fuel system down once lightning was close by. It happened to be in the morning, and a random pop-up storm came about, and lightning started striking pretty close to the airport rather quickly. I had just finished fueling a flight, and I was driving back to our main break room, and I saw a lightning bolt strike by our fuel farm, which is where they hold a lot of the fuel above ground in these big, massive containers. And when I saw that, I kind of immediately rushed to try to get in to tell them, like, hey, we need to shut the fuel system down. So I park my truck, and I start to run into our break room. And as I'm running in, I feel the hair on my arm stand up, and immediately thought, oh shit. But before I could even finish that thought, it felt like I got punched in the head harder than I've ever felt any kind of knock on the head before. I did black out. I didn't fall to the ground. I don't know how long I blacked out for. I came to, and basically my body felt like I had done 24 hours straight of a full body workout. Muscles were sore as could be, just stiff, was hazy in my thought, and I didn't have any burns, but I do remember thinking, like, oh my god, I just got struck by lightning. And I started to walk back into our break room, still kind of in a haze, still sore as could be from muscles and everything else like that. And I approach my supervisor and I tell him, like, I think I was just struck by lightning. And of course he didn't believe me. No way, no way. And I was like, no, I'm serious. I think I was hit. I don't feel good at all. And luckily, another refueler, a coworker of mine, witnessed it happen from his fueling truck as he too was starting to drive in and get ready to park. And so he was able to tell the supervisor, yes, Tanner got struck by lightning. And then they started to believe what was going on. A little side note too is some of our trucks were gasoline, to be able to drive, and the others were diesel, but we had a gasoline fuel pump to fill up our trucks, and the fuel vent that comes out of the ground, that actually was on fire as well. So clearly something was nearby to ignite the fumes coming out of that fuel vent. Anyways, so the ambulance was called. They came and they did an EKG scan, and that was all sorts of messed up, as you can imagine. So they took me to the hospital for observation, and my company was not able to get a hold of my mom, so they were able to get a hold of my cousin. And my cousin tried calling my mom and then told her, like, hey, you need to go to the hospital. Tanner got struck by lightning. Of course, she didn't believe it. After some back and forth, he basically was like, why would I be calling you, if it wasn't true? So she ended up coming. But I did stay in the hospital for 24 hours. The EKG started to settle back down to normal. And so I was released. And yes, I did go buy a lottery ticket that day, and unfortunately I did not win the millions of dollars. But anyway, so that's kind of the main story. Now, everything else is what I kind of feel is important, because I kind of want to document it. And if there's other people out there who have been struck by lightning, I kind of want...
Wow, that must have been an incredible experience, man. Did
It
you
was electrifying.
hear the strike?
I don't remember hearing anything from it, and I blacked out for that short bit, but it was insane how quickly that storm basically started up. It quite literally was out of the blue. It was clear skies, and you saw a little cloud kind of off in the distance, and next thing you know, bam, storm.
Wow.
And so it did happen really, really quickly, and all I gotta say is, like I was telling people, if you feel the hair on your arm stand up, pretty much expect that it's too late. At least in my experience, it was already too late.
Yeah.
I couldn't even finish the thought, and it was already happening. And my experience with it was like I said in there, feeling like I just got punched by the hand of God, like on the top of my head or something. That would be the only way to put it. Is, other people, unfortunately, aren't as lucky, where they might take it at a different part of their body, or maybe still take it at the top of their head. And I think that fuel vent being close by kind of did a lot for me by maybe taking some of the brunt of it, or I don't know, because it was just, it was obviously a weird situation. I looked into it, of course, afterwards, and it's like 90% of people survive, and out of those 90%, like 80% really only show burns or physical marks and stuff like that. And I've seen photos where people had the spider webbing down their back because of the sweat and how it moves around. So there just happened to be some lucky circumstances that day for me to not have any physical effects happen from it.
That's awesome. Do you recall how long you were out?
I have no clue. I just know I was out. I didn't fall to the ground. I didn't I didn't smack on anything. I just kind of woke up in like this half running position, feeling stiff as could be. So I don't know if I was out for only a second. I don't know if I was out for 10 seconds. I wish I would have asked the guy who witnessed it maybe a little bit more. I didn't really dive into it because it wasn't my concern at the time. But yeah, it'd be kind of interesting to figure out how long I was actually out for.
Yeah, man, that's amazing. At least there's no long-term effects. Like you'd think something like that would leave you with persistent heart problems and things like that.
Well, that's kind of why I did that video is because there are things that I've experienced, and there's no way of proving what has stemmed from a lightning strike experience. It could be things like 10 years down the road that it could just be your normal health declining. But there was one thing that I would say that I did notice wasn't mentioned before was an additional heartbeat. And, I had like 3 surgeries prior to that, and no surgeon or doctor ever mentioned, even throughout my medical history, no one had ever mentioned about having an additional heartbeat. After the lightning strike, then all of a sudden they mentioned this. So I'm more apt to say that I probably gained that from the lightning strike. And then just other patterns and things that I kind of noticed from that day moving forward, whether it be sleep patterns, whether it be migraines, whether it be sensitive to atmospheric changes. So that's why I kind of created that video, was to put out there my experience after the fact and what I've kind of gone through and what I think might be tied to the lightning strike experience, and trying to get people's input on what they feel about it too. What things they've noticed with their own body after being struck by lightning.
Yeah. Well, it's a good thing that you got through it okay. So
yeah,
that's awesome.
Right.
That's awesome. All right. Actually, talking about all this freaky health stuff, a question I wanted to ask you earlier, and I completely forgot. When you are going for your jump license, do you have to go through a specific medical?
No, you do not.
So it's not like
get your
pilot's license.
Right. It's not like going for a pilot's license. They don't require you go through any sort of medical training or background. Now, if you want to become an instructor past a coach rating, I believe the advanced free fall instructors, the AFF instructors, and the tandem instructors definitely have to go through a medical, if I remember right. I don't know how rigorous it is, and I don't know if it's the same as like becoming or getting your private pilot's license, but there are things that obviously go into that they want to make sure you're healthy for. But just having your regular skydiving license, you do not have to go through any sort of medical.
Cool. I always wondered about that. And I just want to remind everybody in the side chat, don't forget, these videos have been edited for time. So please head on over to Skydiver Tanner's channel and check out the full-length videos. They are definitely worth the watch. And there's lots of good stuff there. So do make a point of going over there. You won't regret it. So let's check in with Aimee and see if anything's from the chat.
Yes, we actually do have some good comments from the chat. Carl Edwards says, please ask what Tanner's most memorable dive was and which one was the scariest.
Oh, good questions.
Yeah.
Memorable skydives will probably be my 100 skydive, because then you get into the triple digits, which is always fun to get there. Then once you get to 200 skydives, then you can say you quite literally have hundreds of skydives, which is always fun to say. Some of the most memorable ones are the jumps where it's a huge mix of people, whether, like a lot of them will be, you'll have the 18-year-old college student or someone who's freshly out of high school, while having the 69-year-old retired surgeon, along with the 50-year-old lawyer and the 35-year-old retail worker, and you're all doing a jump together, and you all have the same goal during that jump to try to make a cool formation. And so some of those bigger formation jumps are always like super prevalent and strong with me, because it's just a huge group of people from all blocks of life being misfits in one moment and trying to create something. So some of the bigger formation skydives are always super memorable. And then some of the scary ones, when you go to get your Class B license, they want you to start becoming very proficient in different styles of canopy flying. So if you ever want to downsize the square footage of the parachute you're jumping, they want to make sure that you know what things to look for and how you're going to react. And so they ask you to stall your canopy, just like how you would stall an airplane to get your private pilot's license. And when you stall your canopy, you put it in obviously a place where there's no more lift being created, but the canopy also holds its inflation because of that forward and down movement. And so if you stall and you no longer have that forward and down movement, your canopy literally collapses over your head and it goes away. And so your initial thought is to freak out, and but that's why they kind of have you wait a little bit longer until you get your Class B license. But it's also why they want to make sure that you do those things, because you want to know how to react during it. When you're in a canopy, your arms are being held up, above your head as you're holding on to toggles. And so when you go to stall it, you're pulling down, kind of like no different than pulling back on the yoke of an airplane, pulling down, and you get it to where you're basically not flying anymore. So when it collapses, your initial response, crap, put my arms back up, right? Well, if you do that, things could inflate too quick, and you could have line twists. You could have, a spin just like an airplane. So you got to learn how to slowly bring your arms back up. So that's scary. And then I was jumping out in Arizona at a drop zone where there was like a 2,000-foot mountainside right next to the drop zone. And so the winds were really weird going, the wind shears going up on the backside of the mountain, hitting you at a certain altitude when you're under canopy. Once you got below that altitude, it wasn't as bad. But I got to that point at one time, and it was just really weird. And I think the winds were going over the backside of my canopy, so it wasn't helping the nose to stay inflated. And, buffeting around, and I look up, and next thing my canopy is gone. And it's just like, oh, dear Lord. And, and then you just kind of wait it out, and it inflates back up again, like about a second or two later. And then going down again, and all of a sudden I look up, and boom, my canopy's gone, and then it reinflates again. So this really is keeping your cool, no different than a pilot, learning how to deal with engine failure or something like that. But so that was probably one of my scariest moments, is when your canopy collapses on you without you trying to make it collapse. So yeah.
Oh, I bet. And then Geo Sam has a question too. It's a funny one. Do people still yell Geronimo?
I gotta do that the next time I go out. Actually, that's great.
Yeah.
I forget about that, but yeah, no, I haven't heard anyone yell Geronimo. But we do like to scare the hell out of the tandem skydivers, because usually it's their first time, and if you jump out the door, you're like, oh crap, like you forgot something. Or if you're like, you're going up and you open up the door and you're like, whoa, we're really high up. Because like a lot of times, like they'll read, you jump out at 13,000 feet above the ground, and they don't realize how high that actually is until you're on the airplane. So like we get to like the 5,000 foot mark, and they think that we're going to be ready to jump out, and it's like, oh no, we're not even halfway up yet. So,
That's awesome.
I bet you the looks on some of the faces, it must be priceless.
There was a guy on the airplane one time, a tandem person, and most tandem students almost never wear a helmet because you don't want them to like knock the instructor in the mouth during the skydive or do something, so usually they don't wear a helmet. And so the one kid who is doing a tandem skydive goes, should I be worried that I'm not wearing a helmet? And I looked at him and I would be like, if I were you, I'd be more worried that you're not wearing a parachute. Good point.
Good point.
That's true. That's awesome. And then
Cool.
Microraptor says, I don't know if it needs to be explained to anyone who in chat who Chase is.
Oh yeah, so Chase is my fiance. We've been engaged for about a year and a half now. Like I said, proposed to him during my
that's
birthday after he got done doing a tandem skydive. So Chase is my fiance, and he's absolutely amazing. And usually he's on my Wednesday night live streams. So if anyone
Awesome.
wants to get to know him or ask him questions, he's an open book just like me. So come on and join.
Excellent.
Cool.
There you go, everybody. Wednesday nights, head on over to Skydiver Tanner's channel. Catch some live streams with him and Chase. Cool.
That's awesome.
All right, so up until
Yeah, I
this
got a quick
point, we
question.
basically. Oh, yeah, go for it.
Yeah, just a quick question. After getting hit by lightning, have you ever felt like you know what the weather's doing?
Yeah, actually, I like no lie. There was for about a year or two, I would start to get almost like a neck pain, and then low back pain to where it would lead into a migraine. And it usually was the closer the storm got, the more it affected my body as far as neck pain or migraines. It got to a point where I could easily go without looking at what the weather was going to be for that day or without looking at the radar. And it could even be perfectly clear. And as the day would go on, if my neck started to really get bad and then creep down to the lower back to where I got a migraine, I would look at people and be like, there's got to be a storm coming. They're like, but the sky showed perfectly clear. Look at the radar. And we'll pull up the radar. And next thing you know, there is a storm that developed that's looking like it's getting pretty nasty. And that's not as it doesn't really happen as much now, but for like that first year or two, it was weird. I felt like I was very hypersensitive to what the weather was doing. Pressure changes do affect me a lot more since then as well.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah.
Very
Wow.
interesting.
Yeah.
All right. So up until now, we've kind of talked about your background in skydiving, a little bit about life in the pandemic, and so on. I'd like to ask you a few questions about a recent in dipping your toe into the wonderful world of debunking flurfs.
Yes.
Yeah. A couple of things I'd like to ask, first of all. What is the stupidest thing you've ever seen or heard?
I because with skydiving, I still think the whole, there is no pressure gradient. It's just like there's so many things are required a pressure gradient in order for those things to work. Airplanes, skydiving altimeters, checking weather patterns, regular old weather patterns. A lot of that falls into place. And then the biggest one that gets me still is sunlight. I would still like to know during the winter solstice or the December solstice is how does the sunlight get thrown around Antarctica if you were to use a flat Earth map? It just doesn't happen. Along with where I live in Minnesota during the summer, where I see the sun rise and set would be way different if you were to go off the flat Earth map. I would see it rising more in the northeast, kind of swing south overhead, and then set in the northwest, and that doesn't happen. So those are the two biggest ones where it's like common sense type things that's what bothered me. I think is the stupidest.
Cool.
There's
I think
obviously
there's
a lot of people out there, but those two just always drive me nuts.
I think there's a lot of us out there who kind of agree with you on those points. So in that same kind of genre, what claim or conspiracy gets to you the most? I mean, really gets under your skin?
Man, there's quite a few. Recently, obviously, the COVID is a hoax. Is the biggest one that gets under my skin. If we're talking about overall general conspiracies out there, the denying of the coronavirus, and then the whole QAnon stuff as far as like drinking blood of children and Wayfair selling kids, but as like hidden in furniture. It's just like, who believes this stuff? Where does it come from? Are you telling me if I saved up money and went to this website and bought a dresser that was like named Kim, that I'm suddenly gonna have this kid in my furniture that I wasn't expecting to have? I don't think so.
Oh, it's so insane.
And then with the flat earthers, the whole constant saying that the sky or that space is fake, and then Nathan's new YouTube partner, that dude, where he had a bucket of water that he had a flashlight or something under, and it was wavy, and so then he takes his camera and points it to the night sky, and his camera's out of focus, and so the stars look wavy, and he's like, there you go, there's your proof that the sky is fake or the space is fake. Like, dude.
Oh man, they're a bunch of lunatics.
Yeah.
No kidding. And with that, I think it'd be a good time to go to our third video, which is one that you did for Irish Demon about Nathan Thompson. So Colin, why don't you load that up, and then we'll have a chat about it later.
Hey guys, Skydiver Tanner here. I'm here to help Irish Demon out with a little pest named Nathan Thompson. Now we all know of him, but let's focus on one of his videos real quick and discuss that. Alright guys, so I hope you enjoyed that. I left it a very quick and short clip for you guys. You do not have to see Nathan Thompson, nor did you have to hear Nathan Thompson. You're very welcome for that. But as you can see, Nathan likes to use his faith as a reason why to go around and flat smack people, especially kids who apparently he must think are his intellectual equals. But I think he's been proven that even they are smarter than him, as in a couple videos he gets schooled by these kids. Leave the kids alone, Nathan. Also, there's probably 7 kids in some of these videos. He'll probably tag that on to his 10,000 that he has debated over the last 5 years. Which then brings me into 5 years of researching the Earth. I guess that negates the centuries of thousands of people who are brilliant-minded, who figured out that the Earth was a globe well before NASA came around, Nathan. So I guess your 5 years totally negates all that research and all that's been done in place. Anyways, I would like to continue on to talk about Nathan's faith. Now, I don't want to be too much of devil's advocate, and I'm sorry if I offend anyone who is faith-based out there. But Nathan, is your God so weak that he could not create a globe Earth? Could he not have people be viewed as upside down on this globe Earth? Would the Earth not be able to rotate at 15 degrees per hour? Thanks, Bob. And also, what about the universe? Its beauty and its complexity, and we keep learning things every single day. And the more we learn, the more we figure out we need to learn more. I think that would be a much better view of God and how great he is. And if your God truly is weak to create a flat Earth, then I feel kind of bad. But if God really could be that powerful to create our globe Earth and the universe, and you go around trying to deny his greatness by saying that he could only come up with a flat domed Earth, and you try to tell people about this, it's almost like you would be trying to deceive people. Now I'm trying to think, where have I heard something in the faith-based religions in the past of something or someone who deceives? Can't quite figure it out. But maybe that is your true path. Maybe you really are here to try to deceive people. And I think we would all know what that tries to make you, especially when you go around trying to prey on the weaker-minded. Nathan, you are an idiot. Just leave people alone before you get throat punched while you're wearing those spy glasses. Thanks, Irish Demon, for having me a part of this.
That was awesome. That was a really, really awesome video. Funny.
Thank you. Yeah, I
You
was
look like you were
trying to go
having
a
a fun
different
time.
route with it. Yeah, it's so I kind of talked about this a little bit on MC Tunes 10,000 subscriber special, where I said I kind of want to go a different route with some of the flat earthers who use a lot of religion with things, because the way I see it is they will never accept the science, nor will they listen to what you have to say based on science. So I was like, let's start to go after their beliefs as far as religion goes. And the thing with it is, I don't want to put anyone down as far as their religion or what they believe in. But I would say that, probably 99% of people who follow a religion would believe in the globe Earth and not, a flat Earth. And so also looking at these people is they're so vile with some of the things they say and the things they do, being homophobic, racist, so many things out there. So I wanted to go a different route and make them think in their head, because when you tell them science stuff, yeah, it's in their head at that moment, but they're not going to continue thinking about it. Whereas if you go after them and say, like, is your God really that weak that he could only come up with a flat earth, or God is really, really powerful that he can create this universe that we constantly have to be learning, that to me is better proof of it. And if you're trying to say God is too weak, then what are you? What is it? And that's why I put the little demon thing up in the bubble, because then to me that's going to impact them more personally, because they're going to have to look at themselves, because it's going to stick with them more that people see me as this demon, or they're saying that I'm trying to deceive God's greatness and stuff like that. And that will kind of play at them more than what any science will do. So I kind of try to switch it up a little bit.
Cool. Well, you definitely have a knack for it. I hope you do more of those. That was fun.
Yeah, I like it. I love physics, and I understand physics really well. I just don't know the wording to convey it quite yet. So I would like to do some now and then. I don't want to necessarily be a debunking channel, but it is fun to do them. And that's why my other one, if people go look, Huge R's had a compilation of explain why you think flat earthers are idiots. So I created a short clip for him and then put the longer version on my channel. And I did something as basic as putting my skydiving altimeters on my wrist, one analog, one digital, because a lot of them will say, altitude's based off of temperature. And it's true to a degree. The higher up in the atmosphere that you go, the colder it gets until you get, to, I think it's the tropopause, and it gets warmer the higher you get. So I was trying to use those to show, like, no, it's not based off of temperature. Here I am inside where it's 67 degrees Fahrenheit, and you see 0 on my altimeters. Now I go outside where it's colder and it's like 27 degrees Fahrenheit. It should show that I gained altitude. It should show that I went higher if it's based off of temperature, and nothing changes.
Nothing.
So small, simple experiments like that. I do have plans to do some stuff with skydiving. I would like to get a density column and take that on a skydive, and not do it just once. I would take it on multiple skydives and just hold it and film it so people can see how it reacts during free fall, because that's another big thing that they like to argue all the time, is density. And so that's one of the experiments I want to do. And some people have come up with other ones that I can't think of off the top of my head right now, but some of that stuff I would like to do as well.
That sounds like it'd be a really cool experiment. I hope you do it. I'd love to see that video. That would be cool.
I also would like to do a jump in a duck onesie and have someone film me using a P900 on their helmet, someone filmed the person using the P900 on the helmet, but I would be in a duck suit and I would just hold a sign that says like gravity.
That would be the funniest video ever. I would watch that 100 times. That is awesome. That is so cool.
Could I
Aimee,
throw
do
in
you have
something
any
there?
comments from the side?
Colin wanted to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to
What's that?
throw in on that experiment. Can you use bag of chips as well, so we can see the bag expand because of the pressure internal compared to the external?
Yes.
Or is that
Oh yeah,
disallowed on
definitely
your?
do that. You know, have it
Awesome.
have it on the ground and just film it the whole way up and show
Get that-
its expansion.
And on the way down, then eat the bag of chips at the end.
Hey, there you go. That's cool. That's cool.
That's
Anything
awesome.
from the side chat, Aimee?
Yes, actually, we have Microraptor has a question, and she says, "How long does it take from jumping to reach the ground?"
That's a great question.
Mhm.
There's all sorts of different orientations of body flight, which is going to change your terminal velocity. What we teach people first is the belly to earth orientation. It's the most stable way of flying, and it's a slower way of flying. So if you're going to 13,000 feet above the ground, which is the common standard here in the U.S., depending, pretty much across the U.S., it's about a minute of free fall from the time you leave the airplane till you deploy your parachute. And then depending on what size canopy you have will determine how long you're in the air after deploying your parachute. Also, it depends on the way you fly. If you have a big canopy, but you're doing a lot of sharp turns, you'll get down quicker. If you have a smaller canopy and doing a lot of sharp turns, you're going to be down super fast. I'd say the average time from the time you leave the door to the time you're on the ground is probably 5 to 10 minutes. So it's very short-lived, but it's a lot of fun. So that's the common thing. If you were to do different styles of flying, which there's like head down, or some people call it sit flying, or if you're doing stand flying, head up, head down, all sorts of different things. Usually you fall a lot faster. So if you're jumping out at 13,000 feet, it's probably anywhere between 40 to 45 seconds of free fall. So you're shaving off about 15 seconds during that time. The belly to earth orientation, typically terminal velocity is between 115 to 130 miles per hour. And if you're doing a sit fly head down type orientation, usually your fall rate would be about 155 to 175 miles per hour.
Wow. That's incredible.
And I don't know what that is in kilometers, so you guys will have to do that.
Ouch. And then Facty has a question too. He says, "What's the highest altitude you have jumped from?"
The highest altitude I've jumped from is 14,000 feet. It was at a drop zone in North Dakota. They will sometimes just give you a little bit of extra altitude, which is cool. Anything above that, you have to. Is it a Class B license? I think you need a Class B license, and anything above 15,000 feet sea level, which here in the city is 14,000 feet above ground, requires oxygen because you don't want to get hypoxia before you jump out of the airplane or anything like that, obviously. So anything higher than 15,000 feet sea level, oxygen is required. Usually it's just in the airplane. So once you get to about 12,000 feet, you put the oxygen in and you breathe that until it's at jump altitude. Once you're at jump altitude and the doors open, oxygen mask goes off and you can go out the door pretty much right then and there, because by the time you're out the door and you're free falling, you come to a safe altitude where your hypoxia isn't going to be an issue. It's just for that short period of time. So I would like to jump a lot higher. I worked at a drop zone where they offered a 13,000 foot jump and an 18,000 foot jump.
Wow.
And I would have loved to have done that, but I would have either had to do it tandem where I pay extra for it, or I would have to wait until I had a higher rated license. But a lot of drop zones don't. That's kind of why the 13,000 feet is pretty much the common practice.
Oh, okay.
Very interesting.
That's cool. And then Tusks asks, have you ever done a halo or night jump?
Halo I have not done. For a lot of people that don't know what a halo is, high altitude, uh,
Low opening.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
Oh, okay.
like I said, I being afraid of heights, altitude is my friend. So the lowest I've actually deployed my parachute is probably about 2,000 feet. And you see the ground rushing at you pretty quickly. And I don't want to say that I deployed at that altitude by accident, but it kind of was by accident. So I have not done a halo jump. I have done 2 night jumps. Again, you have to have, they prefer, all these things are recommended by the USPA. It's not like where it's breaking the law if you were to do these, but if the safety training officer can ground you at that particular drop zone if you were to break some of these USPA rules. But usually they require 100 jumps minimum for a night jump, and usually you do them during a full moon. So I've done 2 night jumps, and it was during the 4th of July. It happened to be a fairly close to full moon on that night, and so we were going to try to jump over a city that had an airport that was going to do fireworks, so it would be at a specific time so we could watch the fireworks under canopy at nighttime. And
Cool.
when you do your first jump at night, it should be solo because you're not used to that. You have to have some sort of lighting on you that can be seen up to at least 3 miles. As per the FAA with anything that's in the air at nighttime. So we had glow sticks on us, and then I had like this light that I had clipped to me that was super, super bright. On the backside, I had a different light that flashed. The front was flashed red, so people would know that if I'm coming at you, hey, get away. And then the back was the white, so then that way if they saw the white, they would know like, okay, he's flying away from me, so there's not going to be a collision. And then so we landed at the airport at night. We quickly packed up our parachutes, and then the airplane grabbed us, and then we flew back to where our drop zone is. And I did a 3-way night jump with 2 people, because after you do your first jump, then you can start jumping with other people. And that's interesting to be doing a skydive with people who are right in front of your face, but you see nothing else in the sky.
Wow.
And, so it's a lot of fun. It's kind of spooky, but the biggest thing with it is the landing. When we did it at the airport, it was easy to do because they got the runways and everything. And where we landed is we made sure to land in between the taxiways on the grass, so you could see the blue lights of the taxiways, and it was easy to spot where the ground was. But at our drop zone, it's a grass runway. There's no lighting because doesn't really need to be. Most operations always take place during the day, so they'll line up cars and turn on the headlights, and they didn't really have a lot of cars lighting up the landing zone. And so I'm coming in, and your depth perception is completely out the door when it's really dark like that. And so you have to be very altitude aware with your altimeter while also keeping an eye on the ground and the horizon. And so there was one point where I was like, I feel low. I should start flaring my canopy at the point. And I'm glad I did, because I could have pile drived my legs into the ground very easily. Had I not trusted my instincts and started the flaring process when I did.
Yeah.
Wow. Must be disorienting as hell.
Oh, it
must be.
It's
and then
go ahead.
Sorry. No, I was just going to say we have one last question from the plot hole. He says, when are the swordsmen going to accept Team Skeptic's Jeopardy challenge against the beardsman? And then he says, what's the matter, chicken?
I didn't know if the challenge was even put out yet. I had heard him talking about wanting to set it up, but I hadn't heard anything actually being scheduled yet. I think we're more than ready to go. We would love to be doing that. The biggest thing is making sure that scheduling works, because I think Fohammer 335 works overnights, and so it might be kind of difficult for him to get in. But we are ready, raring to go. There is no fear here. Trust me on that one.
Excellent.
Awesome.
Always glad to hear it. Always good to hear a man with no fear. Just
Yeah.
go in there and do it.
Like the old T-shirts from like what was it, the early '90s, the No Fear T-shirts.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, we're coming up on the end of our time. As a matter of fact, I think we kind of passed it by a little bit. So, why don't we hop on to these last quick fire questions, and then we'll call it a night. What do you think?
Sounds good to me.
Awesome. All right. So these are 10 just yes, no, just quick answer, quick fire questions, and I'll just go through them one by one and see what we come up with. So
Okay.
the first one. Single or group jumps?
Group.
Group? Okay. Pizza, burgers, or Chinese takeout?
All three.
All. Good answer. That would have been my answer. Good one. Your favorite drop zone?
Ooh. I like Skydive Twin Cities just because I've jumped in Arizona, but there's more color and more things to see up here in the Midwest.
Okay. All right. What is your proudest achievement?
Obtaining my private pilot's license.
Awesome. Okay, let's switch over to music. Pop, rock, or other type?
Again, all three. I'm all over
Okay.
the board.
All right. What's your favorite film? And don't say Drop Zone because I know you'd be lying.
Oh, again, there's quite a few out there. I guess comedy would be Dogma. I don't watch a lot of movies. I love The Right Stuff for more of a historical stuff. So if people haven't seen The Right Stuff, that would be a great one to watch. I really liked Avatar. I haven't seen a lot of new ones recently.
All right. Okay. When you were in school, what was your favorite subject?
Science.
Science? Yeah, me too. I think most of us would probably answer the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, 3 more to go. Person, living or dead, you would most like to meet if you could.
Ooh, again, another hard one. Wow. I can't think of any particular one, but I think if it were to be science, it'd be like Stephen Hawking.
Mhm.
If it were like an actor, actress, I would have loved to have met Chris Farley because
Cool.
my humor is kind of like what he did. Oh,
Awesome.
yeah, that's a tough one. That's a good one though. But those two people.
Okay. Fair enough. The other side of the coin. Which person would you most avoid meeting?
Nathan Thompson. Hands down.
I knew that was coming for sure. And the last one, the top 3 things on your bucket list.
Visit Australia. I've always wanted to go there. I would love to jump from a helicopter or a hot air balloon at some point. And the last one on my bucket list would be to be able to just own a home with the space that I want for both my creativity and Chase's creativity and fish tanks and dogs and pets, and that would probably be like the big bucket list thing for me.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Tanner. And before we close out for the night, is there anything you would like to share or shell out or tell us before we go?
Go subscribe to my channel. Obviously, I have different plans of things coming out. I always willing to take suggestions on what people might like to see videos on. I plan on having some coming out where I discuss a little bit more about body flight. I did one video on the physics of body flight and skydiving with belly to earth formation. So I want to do the backflying part. I want to go more into the safety of skydiving, where it's not just the rig, but what we do leading up to the skydive. Join the Four Swordsmen Discord. I forgot to grab that link. Usually we're on there a lot of times playing games late at night for me at least, and just shooting the shit, having fun. If you want to go to my Instagram, Skydiver Tanner is my Instagram handle on there. Pretty much is everywhere. Like I said, follow the Four Swordsmen on YouTube as well. We do Saturdays. We live stream. So later on today, we'll be live streaming. Would be, what would that be? It would be 9:30 p.m. UTC time. My live streams on Wednesdays. Right now, I'm kind of just playing around with the time for that. So come hang out with the live streams. If you want to go check out Chase's page and see his artistry as far as the drag queen, I believe the link was out earlier. Otherwise, he's the.original.eve. Yeah, that's pretty much all I'd want to shill out for now.
Okay. All right. Very good. Thank you very much. And let's check in with our crew. Colin, any final thoughts or things you'd like to add before we close up?
No, I'm just going to say thanks, Skydiver Tanner, for coming on. It's been awesome. Very informative on a lot of stuff, and glad to know you used to be able to predict the weather. Yeah, awesome, mate. Very good, and I hope people actually go and subscribe to you. All right, and
Excellent.
I will.
I agree.
Thanks.
And Aimee, any last things from your side?
Yes, I want to say the same things. It's been great to get to know you. It's been awesome. We've learned so much about skydiving too, which is really cool. And thank goodness you're okay after that lightning strike. That's just incredible. That story. It's just, I still have goosebumps about it. and I have been shilling the Instagram, and I just want to let everyone know, please support the arts. We do need them now more than ever because of the lockdown and everything. So any and all art, please support it. It's all great and it's all helpful. So just want to say
Absolutely.
that too.
Thank you very much, Aimee. And on that note, I'd just like to remind everyone to please make a point, get over to Skydiver Tanner's channel, give him a like, give him a sub, share with your friends and your family, and let's support what he's doing. And as Aimee said, let's support the arts in general. We put a lot of effort into what we do for your entertainment, and your support is greatly appreciated. I'm sure Tanner will agree with me on that. So
yes,
thank you, Tanner, for coming out. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you and getting to know you. I hope we can do this again sometime in the future. And good luck to you on the future of your channel.
Well, thank you guys very much for having me on. This was absolutely fun, and it was a good little hangout today. So
excellent. Awesome. I'm glad you could make it. And with that, thank you, everyone, for coming out. And we'll see you again on the next Mega Mirror Live.